That skill presents simple interest. When money is invested, it earns an interest, which means you get back more than what you invest. The interest typically is expressed as a yearly percentage of the amount invested. In simple interest, the interest is calculated on the initial amount invested and is therefore fixed for every time period of calculation. Let's say the amount invested is P and the annual rate of interest is I%. Now the interest, the actual amount of the interest earned in 1 year is equal to I% of P. If I is expressed as a percentage, we need to divide that with 100 to express that as a decimal and multiply that with P. Now that is the interest earned in 1 year. Therefore, the interest earned in n number of years is going to be all of this multiplied with n. So it's going to be I times P times n, provided I is a decimal. If it's a percentage, we need to divide that with 100 to change it to a decimal. And therefore, the final amount referred to as the future amount is equal to the initial amount invested. So that's P plus the interest accumulated over n number of years. So that is going to be I over 100 times P times n, which is equal to P times 1 plus I over 100 times n. Let's look at some examples now. Find the simple interest when 2000 Rand is invested at 4% for 7 years. We know that the formula for simple interest is given by the principal amount, that is the amount of money invested, essentially it's 2000 for this particular problem, times the rate of interest expressed as a decimal. So 4% needs to be expressed as a decimal over here in this formula, times the time, which is 7 years. So I'm going to plug in the values. 2000 for P times 4 over 100 times 7. Time for us to simplify. Divide 100 with 100 and 2000 with 100. So it's a 20 here. And therefore this is going to be equal to 20 times 4 times 7, which is 560 Rand. This is the amount of interest this investment will attract in this time at this rate. Can we do another one? Jack deposited 650 Rand. So this is the deposit amount, or the initial amount deposited, in his bank account at an annual simple interest rate of 3%. In what time will the balance in his account be 728 Rand? So in this particular problem, we need to find the time. In what time the balance is 728 Rand, which means this is the future amount. And of course, the initial deposit is given and the rate of interest is given. Now, the amount of simple interest is given as the future amount minus the initial deposit, which is P. In this case, the future amount is 728, and if you subtract the initial deposit, 650, that many number of Rand is the simple interest earned. So that is equal to 78 Rand. And we have the formula simple interest is equal to the initial amount deposited times the rate of interest expressed as a decimal times the time. This is given. We found out this one. This is given. And we need to find this. Let's go. So we have 78, the simple interest, is equal to the initial deposit, 650, times the rate of interest is 3%. Let me put it as 3 over 100 multiplied with t. And therefore, to find t, we are going to multiply both sides with 100 times 100 and divide both sides with 650 times 3. And do the same on the other side. 650 times 3. Let's simplify this. Cross off the 0 from the end and the 0 from the end. One from the numerator, one from the denominator, which essentially means dividing with 10. And then divide 65 and 78 with the greatest common factor, which is 13. 65 divided with 13 is 5. And 78 divided with 13 is 6. And finally, cross off the 3 and the 6. Write a 2 here because 3 times 2 is 6. And in fact, we could cross off the 5 with the 10. 5 times 2 is 10. So we have a bunch of 1s on the denominator. There's no other number. On the numerator, we have a 2 here and another 2. Which means the time required is 4 years. In 4 years' time, this amount of deposit at this rate of interest will increase to this amount.